Hello and welcome to the Priggya Arora Show, where we discuss aspects of law and entrepreneurship with people who have been there and done that. My name is Priggya Arora, founder of PA Legal, an intellectual property law firm in India. And our guest for today is Simon Haigh, the Growth Strategist. Welcome, Simon, on the show. How are you doing?
It's wonderful to be here, Priggya, and it's a privilege, and I guess I'm qualified to talk about this because I spent the first 13 years of my life as a lawyer, and then the last 15 years of my life in business and as a consultant. So I can look at the legal profession from the outside, so I can be very objective.
Yes, definitely. That's why we invited you on the show, and thank you for accepting our invitation.
You're welcome.
So, Simon, let's start first with something fun as a warm-up. What is one thing in life that you can't live without?
It's this thing here, my iPhone. I can live without a laptop. I can live without a car. But if somebody took my iPhone away from me, I would struggle. It's my office because I work remotely a lot of the time. I travel a lot. So yeah, I would struggle without my phone.
Yeah, definitely. In the era of technology, we all are using our phones the most.
Absolutely, yeah. Obviously, my second answer would be my family, my wife and two daughters. I love them very dearly. So that should be the right answer. My wife and my daughters.
Yeah, definitely. So Simon, now let's begin with your story and how you became the person you are today.
So it's a long story, and I'll be as quick as I can. I grew up in England. I started my career as a private practice lawyer. I trained and worked with one of the big 5 law firms in England, Allen and Overy. And I spent the first 9 years of my career working in law in UK. And then the next, actually 7 years in the UK, and then the next 6 years in Ireland. My wife is Irish, so we moved in Ireland in 1999, and I worked in house. I moved from private practice. I became the first corporate lawyer for Dell, Dell computers.
Yes, definitely.
I was their first corporate lawyer over in Ireland for their home and small medium business division. And then I worked for another American tech company in legal. And it was those 5 years when I worked in house as a lawyer that I really decided that what I was really interested in was business and strategy and how law can help grow business, right? As opposed to prevent business, how law can grow business. And so I learned that I was very good at putting deals together. I was very good at getting people to connect and communicate more and grow business, even as a lawyer. And then I moved to Australia in 2007. And I finished my legal career because I felt that it had finished. I did an MBA in Australia, and I ended up working my way up the corporate ladder, and I became a CEO for an American company in Australia. And then in 2013, I decided that I wanted to create my own business, helping organizations grow, helping organizations achieve their purpose, and also helping leaders achieve their authentic potential. And that's what I've been doing for the last 8 years. And my work today really is a culmination of that long journey. And having a legal background has been very, very valuable because obviously it protects me. It allows me to have a good sense of risk. And when you think about it, all businesses and all of us are governed by what I call the 3 R's of success, or the 3 R's of growth. If you can imagine a triangle, and at the top you have revenue, and then the bottom left you have reputation, and the bottom right you have risk. And when you think about it, all business is about revenue, reputation, and risk. And life is about revenue, reputation, and careers. And so having a legal background really helped me understand risk. And I know a lot about reputation and brand. And then revenue, I've written books on sales and deal making. So it's been a long, varied career.
Absolutely amazing to know this triangle. And also, I think, as you said, that I think law or legal expenses is considered as an expense by various companies. But we need to reverse this idea that law can actually help in growing businesses. So beautifully explained that as well.
Yeah, and just to add to that, it was interesting you picked up on that, because when I worked for Dell, when I was the first lawyer there here in Ireland, I worked in the call center here in Ireland, and there were 2,000 salespeople, and there was me as the lawyer. And for the first year, they didn't like me. They didn't want me to be there because they all thought I was a policeman, right? Wow. And I came up with a strategy there were 7 lawyers around Europe, and we came up with this strategy, and we called it the 7 deadly sins strategy, which sounds extreme, but it made everybody's life easier. And so basically, we trained all the sales staff across Europe, Middle East, and Africa, and we made it clear to them that the only time they need to come to legal is when these 7 legal issues come about, indemnities or covenants or warranties. Everything else is commercial, so they don't have to come to legal, right? And that had 2 impacts. The first of all, it made them realize that legal isn't a policeman. Legal is there just to support and help grow. And the second thing is, do you know what happened? More people came to legal than ever, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
So it's about supporting. And I said, I kept saying to them that legal is both the shield and the sword, right? Yeah. We're the shield to protect the business, but we're also the sword to help grow the business. And a lot of people didn't realize that until we explained it. So I think lawyers have to be better at explaining that. We have to be very intentional and explain, because I think the perception is that lawyers are really always the shield when we're actually both.
Definitely. And especially to give you an example, I practice in IP. So I always tell my clients that you should develop IP which can bring you benefits. Absolutely. Otherwise, it's unimportant to develop that IP which is of no commercial value. So I think business growth should be kept in mind whatever we develop.
Absolutely. And particularly with IP, you're right. IP is about creating the future. That's what it is,
Yeah, definitely. So now, Simon, coming back to growth strategy, can you explain, because I am sure a lot of lawyers would be unaware of the term in itself. So what is growth strategy, and what role do you play when you come on board with companies or as a consultant?
Well, the first thing to say is that for all organizations to grow, they need to innovate, right? So unless an organization is innovating, coming up with new things, new ways of being, new processes, new procedures, it could be intellectual property, or it could be just the way that we operate or the way that we communicate. Unless you're constantly improving as a business, you're going to go backwards because your competitors are going to go beyond you, okay? So growth is essential. And it's the same in our personal lives as well. Unless you and I are constant, as you can see behind me, there's a lot of books behind me. I've written books, but I'm also reading books as well, and so growth is essential for development, for us to grab our opportunities. And so I start with that premise. And I say to businesses, to grow, you need to innovate. Yeah. To innovate, you need diversity. You need diversity of thought. You need different people. You need different cultures. You need quiet people. You need louder people. You need differences. You have to have differences in businesses. And then to have diversity, you have to have inclusion, right? People need to feel trusted and safe, and there needs to be good communication in organizations. There mustn't be fear. If you have fear in organizations, you're not going to have inclusion. You're not going to have true diversity. You're not going to innovate. And you're not going to grow. So I start with that. And I guess just to sum it up, as I said before, I work with organizations to help them achieve their purpose. If a company doesn't have a purpose, right? Lots of companies have vision statements and mission statements, but unless it has a purpose, what is the purpose of this organization, right? Unless it has a purpose, then it's really not going to know where to grow to, right? So I help organizations find their purpose and then find a way to get there. And also with the leaders, who are you? What do you want to be? How do you want to communicate? Do you actually know yourself? Do you control yourself? How do you work with others? How aware are you with others? And how do you grow yourself in the process? So it's all about all those elements of growth.
Well, I think it starts with a bigger picture, but then it falls down to the individuals.
It all starts with growth and then it comes down.
Yeah.
And I always use that analogy of the 3 R's. Whenever I talk with executives or leaders, I talk to them about never, ever forget that image in your head of the triangle of revenue, risk, and reputation. And everything you do in business, in law, or as an IP lawyer, or as a CEO, should be helping one of those three things. If it's not, then you're wasting your time. Revenue, risk, reputation.
So, Simon, an offbeat question which just popped up in my mind. Do you think lawyers are good lawyers, but they aren't that good businessmen?
I think there are good commercial lawyers, and there are plenty of lawyers who aren't commercial, right? So it depends who you talk to. Clearly you are, because you have an awareness. You have an awareness, right? Yeah. I think a lot of lawyers, and I was the same. I was trained in the UK. I went to law school. I went to university in England. I went to law school. I ended up going to one of the big 5 law firms, and it was all about, and this was nearly 30 years ago. I started, and it was all about billing. It was about billing. It was how many minutes you put in. 6 minutes. Every 6 minutes you had to record, and it was all about billing. But not many lawyers talked about the clients, okay? Yeah. And it was about billing and advice, right? It was about billing and advice. Whereas since becoming a client myself, having my own businesses, right? Running businesses, running teams, being an entrepreneur, what a client wants isn't advice. A client actually wants solutions. A client wants to be told as much as possible by a lawyer. And it's very hard for lawyers to go beyond advice and come off the fence and give a solution, right? But there are ways of giving advice and a bit of a solution. And I think the best lawyers aren't afraid of getting off the fence and suggesting, well, this is one thing you could do. This is another thing you could do. If you take this route, this might be the way forward, right? Without putting themselves at risk, without becoming negligent for bad advice. But that's what clients want. They don't want, I've seen so many lawyers advices saying, well, you could do this or you could do that. Yeah. A client doesn't want to hear that. They want to hear, well, what's the best possible opportunity given my circumstances? So I think a lot of lawyers can improve. I've been out of the legal profession for 20 years, so I don't know whether it is improving, but certainly spending time in-house within a business, I definitely think helps lawyers. I think all lawyers should spend at least 6 months within a company, and that would help.
And I agree with you so much. So when I started my my law firm or my practice individually after I left my job, so I read a book called E-Myth Attorney, and according to that book, the writer suggests that law is business. If you're starting a law firm, you're starting a business. It's no less than starting any other business. So that's how that always remains in my mind. Okay, if I am running a business, what all I need to do.
Absolutely. And I think awareness is so important for business people, for lawyers, for leaders. It's really important for lawyers not to be egotistical, right? So many lawyers have this big ego, right? But most business people out there are smart, right? They don't want an ego. They want practical solutions, right? And so I think the best lawyers have that awareness that really you're a business partner. You're not a legal advisor. You are giving legal advice, but you're a business partner. That's really important.
Definitely. I think one of the key pointer of being for lawyers is like be an empath and be involved and be curious about your clients. So Simon, now coming to, can you share something about growth strategy specifically for lawyers, law firms, and legal businesses? Like what could be some key elements for that?
Well, I think I've mentioned some of them. I think it's very important to have an awareness of perceptions, right? So, I hate to say it, but a lot of people out there think that lawyers are just after your money. A lot of people think that, right? And so I think you need to have that awareness. And so I think having that awareness, I think you need to go the extra mile as a lawyer to be personable, to be friendly, to be helpful, not to be constantly looking at the clock, to be there, to think longer term relationship with your client rather than how can I get as much money out of this client? Because it's the same as a consultant or a coach, right? I mean, I don't have guaranteed income. my revenue is dependent on how I treat my clients, my customers, right? And so I think lawyers need to have that awareness and always think, how can I provide solutions to problems, right? And don't be afraid of saying, well, this is as far as I can go on this particular issue, but maybe you need commercial advice from a consultant, and don't keep everything to yourself. I think being practical minded as well is really important. I mentioned in my time at Dell when the lawyers, we boiled down the issues to 7 key issues, and we actually got everybody in the business to have a sheet on their desks, attached to the desks, with the 7 deadly sins. And so that took away the worry, right? So I think good lawyers need to think about, how can I actually take away the worry of my client? How can I take away the worry, rather than how can I lord it over them or show them how good I am? How can I make them look better, right? And I think lawyers need to be a lot less egotistical and a lot more helpful. I think those things are important.
Yeah, absolutely right. And I agree with this. And I also would like to add on, whenever a client approaches lawyers specifically, I think they're not in a good state. That's why they're coming to lawyers. So
Absolutely.
They need much more help at that point.
Absolutely. So I think that's a very good point you say there. I mean, nobody really wants to go to lawyers, right? Nobody really does, right? I'm the same. Like, I'm an ex-lawyer, but I had an issue a few years ago when I could have engaged lawyers to take a lawsuit, and I made a decision. And people actually reminded me, right? They said, Simon, don't go legal, because remember the case from the Charles Dickens book, Bleak Times, and it was the case of Jarndyce versus Jarndyce, and basically that was 2 sisters who were fighting over an inheritance, and do you know what the solution was? The lawyer got rich and they both became bankrupt because all their money went to the lawyer, right? So most people think of lawyers like that way. But everybody needs lawyers at some time in their lives. So I think have that in the back of your mind about the perceptions and think, how can I take away? I think good lawyers need to almost be like therapists and counselors, right?
Yeah.
calm the client down, assure them that we're there to help them, assure that we're there to help grow the business, that we do have great advice, but we want to go the extra step to help them solve their own solutions. I think lawyers should be trained as counselors as well.
Yes, definitely. I think lawyers themselves, they need a lot of coaching to become good lawyers and people who are really interested in lives of clients.
I agree.
Yeah. So, Simon, you have been a problem solver at heart. You have so many businesses. You are a founder and CEO of so many businesses, and you also work with clients. So can you tell us some gaps which you think always exist in business, and you have to always fulfill those gaps when you start building up or advising somebody?
Well, the first and most important thing by far is communication. Yeah. Most problems, that 99% of problems in companies and organizations is communication failure. There's a communication failure somewhere, right? And whether it's people not communicating effectively, or whether there's a lack of trust, or people don't feel included, or people don't believe their leaders, it's always communication. When you think about it, Priggya, everything we think about, everything we read, everything we remember, everything we notice is communication. And yet leaders aren't really taught what communication is, right? Nobody taught me what good communication is. And when you break communication down, what it really is not really language, right? It's connection, it's trust. And you asked me to come here, you gave me a time, and I'm here, right? So you trust me because I arrived, and I trust you because you're asking me questions. That's what communication is. It's about trust-based connection, and that's missing in so many organizations. Maybe because they get so big, or because there are silos, or because people don't own the business, so they don't care enough. So communication is a big issue. Inclusion is a very big issue as well, right? And I don't just mean diversity, equity, inclusion, although I do, right? It's about equality. It's about having a good, diverse workforce. But also, what a lot of businesses are missing is the fact that it's not only the noisiest people who are the smartest. Often it's the people over there who are the quietest, right? Who
Yeah.
don't feel confident enough, who have imposter syndrome, right? And don't feel confident to say something. Good leaders, a really good leader needs to have the awareness to go and find the person who's quiet and who's shy and help them have a voice, right? And I don't think that happens enough in business. And then finally, I don't think enough businesses are truly cohesive, are finding ways to bring everybody into a conversation, to allow diversity of thought, right? So I think those three, and it all comes down to communication. But everything I've just said is communication, right? And it's awareness. And when you think about it, communication is the outward manifestation of our awareness, right? If I wanted to start a business with you, right, it would be a journey over 6 months, a year of you and I getting to know each other and building trust and being open and forming a connection, right? And that takes time. But unless you're open-minded and willing and honest and intentional as a leader, don't assume it's going to happen, because it's not going to happen. So you have to work at these. And most businesses, I'm afraid, don't work at communication enough.
Yeah, very rightly said. And I think communication skills like communication, people management, even writing emails or written conversations, I think these should be incorporated in school, and probably children should be taught how to at least manage people, speak to people around you. And yeah.
Absolutely. And, for example, how do you influence somebody? A lot of people don't realize that to be a leader, you have to have people who believe in you. And so how do you get people to believe in you? You need to influence them. But a lot of people don't realize that to grow your influencing skills, it's a bit like going to the gym. If you want to get fit, you have to go to the gym. To influence people, you have to practice and practice. And so there's different types of influencing skills. There are people who are very good at negotiation, right? There are people who are very good at forming coalitions. There are people who are very good at getting people to support them because they like them, right? There are people who are very good at using assertive communication. Assertive communication is getting what you want, need, or feel in a way that's respectful of others, right? So it's not being passive and it's not being aggressive. Nobody teaches us these things, right? But if you build your influencing skills and your assertive communication skills, amazing things can happen. And that's the work that I do a lot of the time, is helping people get over their imposter syndrome, understand how they can improve their influence skills, become more assertive, and then they suddenly see that they can navigate life better.
Yeah, and it's so beautiful. Then we can achieve what we want to do, and probably not leave everything on the circumstances.
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. And I love the image behind you. Your innovation is worth it, and I think that's really, really important, that and this is a really important point to make. And I just looked at that when you think about it, Priggya, we all have potential. Every human being has potential, right? And there are opportunities, right? And yet, how do we navigate the gap between our potential and the opportunities? Okay. I mean, there's so much potential for most of us, right? And there are so many opportunities. There are places where it's more difficult, right? There are certain countries in the world, but there is a journey to be had. And I'm fascinated by what do we need to do to find a roadmap to maximize our opportunities. And for me, there are intangible things like your mindset, your focus, your intuition, your resilience. But I'm more interested in the intangibles, like being in the right place at the right time, being open-minded, being willing, being honest. And those intangibles, I'm writing a program about this right now. They're the magic that actually help separate really successful, purpose-driven leaders from people who struggle, right? And it's being open-minded, it's being willing, it's being self-honest, and that's really interesting.
Oh, beautifully put, intangibles. And if we have all those things in place, I think action automatically happens. It's like action happens because of it.
Imagine if you could write a book, right, that showed what all the intangibles are. And if you do X, Y, and Z for each of those, you could actually demonstrate some outcomes. That book would be a bestseller.
Yes, yes, definitely. And we'll be waiting to receive that book from you. So Simon, now about again your life. We all go through our good and bad times, and I'm sure you must have had that. So would you open up a little bit about that, and how do you keep yourself motivated?
Yeah, absolutely. You know, I've had bad times. I've had health issues in the past. 12 years ago, I was in a bad place personally in terms of where I was going in life, and I needed help, right? And I don't have any problem anymore, Priggya, saying that I needed to talk to somebody about where I was going, right? And I think the strongest people say, I need help, right? They're not the weakest people, they're the strongest people. And so that was a great process for me to try and understand who I am, get a sense of what values do I have, what's my purpose in life, where am I going? And so that was really important. And I use this now with my clients. Okay, so having gone through it myself, right? What I do now is when I help my clients to grow, I look at 4 levels of growth, right? So I start with them and I say, who do you want to be? I say to them, not what do you want to do? I say, who do you want to be, right? Who do you want to be? And then we start with that and we talk about what is your mindset? How open-minded are you? How positive are you? And then we go into so that's personal growth. And we talk about leadership growth. So now you're a bit more aware of yourself. How do you think you could communicate better to influence others? And then we move into business growth, knowing what you know about yourself. How resilient are you? How do you think you could empower others? And then we talk about the personal brand and how you can grow that. And my work today is shaped by the fact that I was in a difficult place myself 12 years ago, right? And I think it's more important nowadays for people to talk about, mental health and wellness. These aren't weaknesses, right? We all have mental health issues. We're human beings, right? We're human beings. And so I think we need to talk about this more. And there's a lot more talk about neurodiversity. We all have issues. We're humans, right? And so I think having open, honest conversations, reaching for help, and that's what I've done. And I'm blessed today now I can help others improve their frequency. I call it their growth frequency, right? So we have a certain frequency at different times in our lives. And some people can achieve X and some people can achieve Y. And so I'm looking for where is this person on that frequency scale and what can they honestly, realistically look for? And that came from bad times in myself 12 years ago,
I know. And it's like, I understand this, like asking for help is, I think initially when I started, it was so difficult for me. Oh my God, how can I ask for help? Like the day I left my job, I had to tell my parents, okay, I'm leaving job. If I need some money, would you be able to help me? And it was so freaking difficult for me to have this conversation with my parents. And now I think back, it should not have been that difficult.
No, it's interesting you should say that because I Googled maybe 3-4 years ago. I was really interested in this subject about asking for help, right? Because I know Marshall Goldsmith, the world's #1 leadership thinker. He's actually done the foreword to a couple of my books. And I asked him 2 years ago, I said, Marshall, I'm getting growth in my business, but I'm not getting recognized enough. And this was before I started getting accolades. And he said to me, Simon, you need to match your confidence with your capability. Your confidence with your capability. And I asked him, what does he mean? And he said, when you don't know something, ask for help. Ask the right person, right? You need to be constantly learning. And it's interesting though, I Googled a few years ago, there's a place in India, it's like a hospice for elderly people in India, people who are about to die, right? And they did a survey and they asked these wealthy Indians who are in the final few days, what did they regret most in life? And do you know what was the #1 answer? I wish I'd asked for help more. And when you think about it, these are people who are about to pass away and they say, I wish I'd asked for help more. So those words have stayed with me. And so when I'm on my deathbed, I don't want to say, I wish I asked for help more.
Yeah, oh my God, I just went into the conversation so much. And I also remembered there is a book, Tuesdays with Mori. And
Yes, I've read
uh,
that.
yeah, and the person is about to die, and he just discusses like what are things he should have done better and what he
Yeah.
regrets and things like that. So,
But you know what? You know what? My if you look at my LinkedIn profile today, I have, over 25,000 followers. I have a number
yeah.
of accolades from Thinkers 360, all of these things, right? And do you know how this all started? 6 years ago, when I was in Australia,
Mhm.
I decided I would write a book called that one there, called Deal Making for Corporate Growth. I moved my head. That book there, Deal Making for Corporate Growth. And I had a publisher in Ireland. And then I thought to myself, nobody knows Simon Haigh. I need to go on LinkedIn and find somebody famous for that and ask them, will you write the foreword to my book, right?
Yeah.
And I didn't know anybody famous, right? And I went onto LinkedIn and I went through lots of people and I found this guy, Marshall Goldsmith, who's the world's #1 leadership thinker. He's like an angel in my life. And I asked him, I sent him a message on LinkedIn, and it took 4 months, but he said yes, right? So he wrote the foreword to that. Then he wrote the foreword to my next book. And as a result, I am where I am, right?
Yeah.
And there's a film, Sliding Doors, right? I don't know whether you've seen the film Sliding Doors, where I can't remember the actress, but if you get on a train in life, you can go left or you can go right. We all
Yeah.
have choices, right? Imagine if I hadn't asked Marshall Goldsmith 6 years ago, I wouldn't be here today.
Yeah.
So everything I have today is because I asked for help 6 years ago. It's simple, but we don't do it enough.
Yeah, like I asked for a help, and you are here as my
Yeah,
guest, and I get to
yeah.
learn so much. I think sometimes I do these podcasts so that I can learn. I don't know about the audience. Audience learns, that is okay. I do it for the audience as well, but
Well,
I personally learn so much from.
we learn from each other, and also it's not just the younger generation learning from the older generation,
Correct.
right? The older generation can learn from the younger generation as
Yes.
well. This is the first time in history that 5 generations are in the workplace at the same time. Baby boomers, Generation X, Y, millennials, and Generation Next. The first time in history, right? And so isn't it amazing? You can have people who are
Amazing.
70 in an office with people who are 18. That never happened in history. So we all learn from each other.
Simon, I just read a story today morning. A 10-year-old kid, he started his first entrepreneurship venture at the age of 10, and I was amazed. I am 30, and what's happening to the
I
world?
know, I know, but it's great. It's great.
Yeah.
And as I told you, the opportunities are unlimited, right? But we
Yeah.
just need to find a way to understand our own frequency, our own capabilities, our own mindset, our own awareness, our own resilience to then be able to attach ourselves to the right opportunities. And that's the work I do.
Absolutely amazing. So now a quick rapid fire round. I'll answer these questions very quickly, and I'll just fire up the questions. So 3 things you are grateful for.
My wife, my 2 daughters, and living in Ireland in a place that allows me to be free. Those 3 things.
Great. 2 traits or habits that you think are useful for lawyers.
Definitely, we've mentioned it. You need to be commercially minded. Think of you as being a business partner, not an advisor, right? Business partner, not advisor. And the second one is you need to be diligent. You need to be hardworking. You cannot be lazy as a lawyer, right? There's a lot of work to be done. So I think diligence and commercial minded.
Great. And one aspiration you have for the future.
For me, it's to keep staying aligned to my purpose. And my purpose, as I've said, is to help organizations find their own purpose and help leaders achieve their authentic potential. And that's the work that I've committed to do for the rest of my life.
Great. And I wish you all the best for that. And to conclude, our last question is, can you share some key takeaways for young lawyers and legal entrepreneurs?
This might sound silly, but um, I would recommend lawyers ask themselves 3 questions. Young lawyers, ask yourself 3 questions, right? Every morning for 6 weeks. And those 3 questions are, do I like myself? Do I trust myself? And do I respect myself? 3 questions, easy questions for 6 weeks. And I guarantee at the end of the 6 weeks, you might not like yourself or trust or respect yourself more, but you'll definitely be a little bit more self-aware, right? Because self-awareness for a young lawyer, I think, is critically important to help them navigate that journey of becoming a business partner, being respected, being trusted, and having the optimal growth journey they can have.
Correct. So I'll just reiterate the questions. Do I like myself? Do I trust myself? And do I respect myself?
Absolutely.
Perfect. So I think it's a great way to know about yourself, and I'm going to practice it for 6 weeks, definitely.
Yeah, no, that's good. That's good. And I guess, I guess for me, it's about being calm, as a leader, right? And lawyers are leaders because they're leading business clients through advice, is to be calm at all times, to be courageous. Sometimes you need to make tough decisions and you need to provide a solution, but always be compassionate. Always be compassionate. Never operate through ego or arrogance. Always think there, but for the grace of God. One day I could need a lawyer. I might need advice. I might need to help. So always be calm, courageous, and compassionate.
Calm, courageous, and compassionate. Thank you so much, Simon, for accepting our invitation and being here. I'm sure audience is going to love this episode.
You're welcome. It's great to chat with you, and take care, and keep in touch on LinkedIn. That would be great.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Hey there, thank you for attending today's session. If you enjoyed today's session, do follow our channel and consider sharing it with a friend. My name is Priggya Arora, daughter of inspiring parents, alumna of IIT Kharagpur, engineer turned lawyer and entrepreneur, and now founder of PL Legal, where we help creators and innovators protect their intellectual property. Thank you.